take a heart that's broken, make it over again. But I know a man who can. I can take a soul that's sick, make it white as the snow. But I know a man who can. Some call him Savior, the Redeemer of all men. I call him Jesus, for he's my dearest friend. If you feel no one can help you and your life is out of hand, well, I know a man who can. I can walk upon the waters or calm the troubled sea, but I know a man who can. I can cause blind eyes to open or make the lame to walk again, but I know a man who can. Some call him Savior, the Redeemer of all men. I call him Jesus, for he's my dearest friend. If you feel no one can help you and your life is out of hand, well, I know a man who can. Yes, I know a man who can.
This week has been horrible. It's just been bad. Come here Wednesday night, everything's fine. It's a potluck night, so it's a good night. Thinking I'm going to eat, I'm going to relax. And then Sherwin gets my attention and said, hey, come back here. I said, okay, that's never good. So I go back there at the sound booth and he just points at the screen. It says that it's on and nothing's coming through the system. And I thought to myself, this has happened to me once before and I couldn't fix it last time. But I tried to fix it. So I ended up working a couple hours Wednesday night. Couldn't do anything. Thursday, I spent a long time on the phone with Apple. I spent a long time on the phone with the company that makes our matrix system. Couldn't get it fixed. After about 13 and a half hours of working on this stupid system, and after trying 5 completely different computers, finally last night I'm able to find a computer that will at least connect to the system. Problem is, I lost all my graphics, I've lost everything, and I'm just irritated. So I get here early this morning thinking it's fixed at least. Well, I ended up working for about an hour this morning on different things, trying to get it working right because it wasn't completely fixed. And it's still not completely fixed. And I thought to myself, that's really a stupid thing for me to be worried about. I have spent countless hours this week worrying about something that really, in the grand scheme of things, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Throughout the work yesterday I was sitting here thinking about this particular sermon and thinking about the different issues that the church that we're going to talk about this morning was facing. And I thought, if the only problem that we're facing right now is that this matrix system isn't working right, things are going pretty good. Well, along with the matrix system messing up yesterday, Nick came to the men's breakfast with me. And Nick can entertain himself most of the time, but Nick likes to play with stuff. And at one point I looked up and he was on the light system. And he had reset every setting to that light system. So Josh, if you're having problems this morning figuring out why the lights aren't working, I just did a quick reset and tried to do the best I could. So I've learned a lot of lessons this week. But the biggest lesson that I learned is, even though my remote won't control my sermon this morning, even though all my graphics are gone, even though the system's not working properly, we've got it really good here at this church. You know that? The problems that we're facing right now are nothing compared to the problems that this church was facing. But as we look at this church this morning, by the way, I think I'm going to be able to control my sermon through my phone. I am not texting, I'm not on Facebook, I'm not doing anything inappropriate. These are my slides, so I'm trying to do this. If not, Dre, you're on the hot seat, you're going to have to change it exactly when you're just going to read my mind, okay? So hopefully this works. The Church of Philadelphia was a unique church. Out of all of the churches that we've studied, the church at Philadelphia is a unique church because of the way that they were as a congregation. So as I was, kind of like I did last week, I kind of liked finding what different people said about that church, and so I was looking, it works. Next slide came up. Dre? There we go. There we go. The Church of Philadelphia. The faithful church. If you were getting a letter from Jesus Christ, if he was going to talk about the church that you attended, this would be a good thing for him to say about you, right? We would want this to be said about us. I really like this particular one. The Church of Philadelphia, dynamic love matters. This church was unique. Of all of the churches that we've studied, this one was unique. Now, going back to kind of our map here, if you look at our map, this is where we're talking about. I don't have my pointer today because my remote's not working right. But you can kind of see up here on the right-hand side where it says Asia up there, you see where Turkey is. That's the part of the world, again, that we're talking about. And as we look at the particular churches, we started in Ephesus. Actually, we started talking about the Isle of Patmos where John was. Then we worked our way up. Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis last week, Philadelphia this week. And then next week we will conclude this particular study with the church at Laodicea. And I don't know where we'll go after that yet. I haven't decided. But we will cross that bridge when it comes. But the church at Philadelphia was unique. There's a picture that I found about modern-day Philadelphia. I don't remember what the name of the town is today, and I probably couldn't pronounce it even if I remembered it. But in modern-day Philadelphia, right here you see some remains. This is actually the church that was built in the 7th century that we're talking about here in the 1st century. Now guys, this year, Independence Missionary Baptist Church, we're going to celebrate our 175th anniversary as a church. Guys, this church started in the 1st century. At least 7,000 or 700 years later, they built an even bigger church. And then it ended up lasting another 600 years after that. Phenomenal story of this particular church. And we'll look at some of the reasons today why this church was able to persevere when every other church in the area was dying off. Every other church was disappearing. The spread of Islam across Turkey was so prevalent at that time. The persecution was so great. Churches were dropping off the face of the map. But this church, because of their faithfulness, withstood longer than any of the other churches. So as we look at the churches, last week we talked about this church named Sardis. And if you remember, when we got to that section, where we looked at what went right, what went wrong, we get to the section where God was talking about what was good about the church of Sardis, and he had absolutely nothing good to say. Well, the exact opposite is going to be true this morning. When God talks about the church of Philadelphia, he has absolutely nothing bad to say about the church. I found that interesting. And it really made me think about this. Number one, Is there really such thing as a perfect church? Think about this for a minute. If you were going to think about your perfect church, if you could design everything about it, from the building to the people that were in it, to the way the worship services were conducted, to the pastor you could choose, the person, the teacher you could choose, you were going to design your perfect church. Would it really exist? Probably not, right? Because the truth is, there is no such thing as a perfect church. And here's the thing I want you to notice about the Church of Philadelphia. God had nothing bad to say about the Church of Philadelphia. But that doesn't mean that it was a perfect church. Because just like every other church, it was still filled with people. And as long as churches are made up of people, there are going to be problems. So it wasn't perfect. Yet in spite of its imperfections, it was able to move forward. Next thing I want to ask you is there a church that exists today without problems? You know, we're naive to think that we as a church today don't have problems. We're naive to think that from time to time we don't offend each other. We're naive to think that even though we love each other, that we're always going to agree with each other. Because the truth is, we're made up of a bunch of people. And there are going to be times when you're going to get mad at me. There are going to be times when I'm going to get mad at some of you. There are going to get times when we're going to get mad at each other. Because that's just what happens. Guys, my favorite human being on this earth is probably my wife, believe it or not. I don't know. Are you recording? Oh, shit. But you know what? There are times when she and I get mad at each other and we don't talk to each other for a little while. I know that's hard for you to imagine. Neither one of us are strong-willed. But here's what I want to notice about the Church of Philadelphia. It was not a perfect church. It was not a church that didn't have problems. But when God talked to the people at the Church of Philadelphia, He talked about them differently than He did the other churches that we've listed, right? And there was a reason for that. Sometimes encouragement is all that it takes to make sure that people stay on the right track. Let me give you an example. Right now, I am an assistant coach of a baseball team. Okay? And they absolutely drive me crazy. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't even sit in the dugout anymore. I can't do that. I sit on the outside. I coach during practice, and I sit in the outside and I watch during the games because it drives me crazy. I can't do it. But whenever I'm working with these kids, when I see something that they do really well, I'll brag on those kids. I didn't learn that as a coach. I learned that as an elementary principal. That works. If you want somebody to do what you want them to do, you brag on the good stuff that they do. You don't even talk about the places that they mess up. If you're constantly encouraging them about the things that they're doing really well, they try to keep doing those things. Psychology, it's great. It works. That's the same type of concept that I see here in the Church of Philadelphia when God is talking to them. What God is saying, He's not saying that you're a perfect church. He's not saying that you don't have problems that you need to fix. What He is saying is, those big things right now that you're doing, you're on the right track. Keep doing those things, and these other things are going to take care of themselves. I had a pastor tell me one time, and I've told you this many, many times. He said that if we figure out how to get our love for God right, if we figure out how to get our love for each other right, all the rest of the stuff is going to take care of itself. Because if you love God the way that you're supposed to love God, you're going to follow what His Word says because you love Him. If you love each other and you try to serve each other out of love, the rest of it takes care of itself. Because as problems arise, you deal with them. And you move past them. And you get back on the right track. And so we're going to look at a church today that I think is a great example of that. So if you have your Bibles, turn with me to the book of Revelation chapter 3. We're going to start in verse 7 today. Revelation chapter 3, starting in verse 7. Verse 7 says, "And to the angel of the church in Philadelphia write, These things saith he that is holy, he that is true, he that hath the key of David, he that openeth, and no man shutteth, and shutteth, and no man openeth." Verse 8 says, "And I know thy works. Behold, I have set thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world, to try them that dwell upon the earth. Behold, I come quickly. Hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. Him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and he shall go no more out. And I will write upon him the name of my God, and the name of the city of my God, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my God, and I will write upon him my new name. He that hath an ear, let him hear what the Spirit saith to the churches." You know, normally when we get to this part in this particular series, we've looked at what they got right, looked at what they got wrong, right? Well, what we're going to notice today, number one, I said this earlier, they didn't have anything that God was telling them that they got wrong. Okay, so we're just going to look at the things that they got right. So as we read these particular verses of Scripture this morning, what does it all mean? Well, let's first talk about this. Let's go to the next one there, Trey. The one who has the keys of David. Okay, that's kind of how he starts off this one right here. Okay, here's what I want you to notice. This is a reference to the kingship of Jesus Christ. You know, whenever we think about Jesus Christ, I think a lot of times we don't understand who he really is. We don't always understand what we look at, I think, a lot of times. Let me start here. A lot of times we look at Jesus, and what we see Jesus Christ who came to this earth. He lived this perfect, sinless life, and we think about him being this meek and this mild person. You know, a lot of times when we think about Jesus, isn't that what we think about? But the thing is, that is just one part of his character. That is only one portion of who Jesus is. And so he starts off saying this, the one who has the keys of David. Okay, this is in reference to to his kingship over everything. Okay, if you talk to a Jewish person today and they talk about the great kings that they had in their past, you know, we think about a lot of those great kings that they have. Just like Moses is considered the greatest leader, David is considered to be their greatest king. And so everything stems from this idea of the kingship of David. And so when Jesus is talking here about this kingship, when he says that he holds the keys of David, what he's telling them is, I am the ultimate authority for you. Listen to what I have to say. And that's how he starts out this right here. Here's what I want you to notice. God is grateful for faithful service to him, even when it goes unnoticed by other people. Do you agree with that? God is grateful for faithful service, even when it goes unnoticed by other people. I've told you about the deacon we had at Temple when I was the youth pastor, associate pastor at Temple in Baltimore. Love that man to death. He did so much behind the scenes that nobody ever saw. Just to make sure that church ran smoothly whenever it was time for worship services. You know, we have a lot of those people in our church today that do things that you never see. I like to come up here. I like to be here, I'll be honest with you. When I need to get away from everything, I will drive the 20 miles it takes to get here, to come up here and kind of be by myself. Sometimes when I come up here to be by myself at odd hours, when other people should be in bed, when other people shouldn't be here, There are people up here doing stuff that you don't even know about. God rewards that faithful service, even though nobody else sees what's going on. God rewards that service. And God is grateful for faithful service, even when it goes unnoticed by other people. Here's the problem a lot of times. We as Baptists, we talk a lot about salvation being by grace through faith, right? And it absolutely is. Our salvation is by grace through faith in Jesus Christ, and it's not of our own works, nothing that we've done. And a lot of times we think about that verse and we dwell on that verse. And we forget that it goes on and says, but you were created to do good works. You see, the things that we do for each other, even if other people don't see it, God is thankful for that service. The things that we do for this church, even when nobody else sees it, God is thankful for that service. And what God is telling the people here in the church at Philadelphia, He says, even though nobody else sees it, I see it. And I want you to know that I am thankful to you for your faithful service, even though nobody else sees what's going on. And when I think about the work that we do, God says the exact same thing to us as well. Your fellow brothers and sisters may not see the work that you're doing behind the scenes, but I see it and I am thankful for the work that you're doing. And that's the first thing that he had to say to them. You know, here's the thing. The root of a lot of the problems within a church is simply that we need to learn to serve others without expecting to get something in return. I'll be honest with you. I like to be recognized when I do something good. Now think about it for a second. That's a little unselfish, isn't it? Or a little selfish, not unselfish. A little selfish. But aren't we all a little bit that way sometimes? If you do something good, don't you want to be recognized for it? When I was the head baseball coach at Bradford High School, I remember we came to the end of the school year and it was time for the sports meeting. And I got up and I gave my talk. And I forgot to recognize one of my volunteer assistants. And that person was so mad at me. I had his name written down on my card. I was just a little kid who was nervous. Standing up in front of people, which I hated doing. Oh my now, but I did at the time. I didn't want to talk in front of other people. And that guy got so mad at me for not recognizing him. The truth is I should have recognized him, and I apologized to him, and I told him, I said, you're right. You should have been recognized for your contributions to this team, how small they may have been. Because that's how mad I got after he approached me with, but that's not true. He actually did a good job. But don't we like to be recognized when we do stuff? We do. That's natural. But the truth is, if we're really serving the way that we need to serve, there are a lot of times when we're going to do stuff and people aren't going to see it. And that's okay. Because God is telling them here in this chapter, He says, even though nobody else sees it, guys, I see it. And you're going to get rewarded for it someday. I promise you. So we need to serve faithfully like the people in the church of Philadelphia did. You know, the next part, it says, I know that you have but little power. And I'm going to stop there for just a second. We need to understand that the only power that we have has been given to us by God to be used for His purposes. Okay, I think we forget about that sometimes. Sometimes we get hung up on this idea of power, this idea of authority. The truth of the matter is, nobody has more authority than what God has given to them. And what God says is, I know that you don't have a lot of authority. I know that you don't have a lot of influence. I know that you're not very strong without me. And the truth is, the things that we do because we've been empowered by God to do them. And that's what God is reminding them of here. You see, the church is hated by Satan. And he does everything that he can do to try to weaken Satan's influence in the church. Or Satan does everything he tries to do to weaken the influence of the church. As you look at society today, Society in the United States of America today is moving farther and farther and farther away from the teachings of the Bible, right? We think that this is new, we think that this is uncommon, but the truth is this has happened in every culture that's ever existed that has experienced Jesus. They start off on the right track, and unfortunately, over time, they seem to get farther and farther and farther away. You know, we don't realize, we talk about Europe today. Europe is a very godless place for the most part today. But do you realize that used to be the center of Christianity in the world? But throughout time, they got farther and farther and farther away from the teachings of what God's Word says, to the point to where it seems like it's a completely godless society. And here's why that happens. It doesn't happen because the nature of man changes over time, because it doesn't. We're born with that sin nature. We have always had that sin nature. What happens is, the church begins to compromise on what truth is. And eventually, you cannot tell the difference between the church and society. And that's where the real problem comes in today. And I'm afraid today that as a society in general, you're not able to see the difference in many churches today in the society that we're in. Because churches are starting to give up on what truth really is. And they're stepping farther away from this idea of truth, to the point to where truth is no longer a concrete thing in the minds of a lot of people. It is an abstract idea that is not a true absolute. And that happens because the church compromises. But as we look at the Church of Philadelphia, they faced the same persecution that we're facing today. Yet in spite of the persecution, they refused to change what they stood for. And as a result, God said that I'm pleased with the job that you're doing, even though you're looked down upon by culture, even though Satan's been attacking. Here's what I want you to see. Really committed Christians are offensive to other people. And the truth is, really committed Christians are offensive a lot of times to other Christians because it convicts us. We want to fit in, don't we? We don't want other people to look at us and say that you're a fanatic. We don't want other people to look at us and say, you're crazy. Because we want to fit in with other people. But there's a problem with that line of thinking. Because Jesus tells us, eventually, that if you're a Christian living the way that you ought to live, you're going to be offensive to other people. Because they're going to be convicted by the way they do things. Or they're going to be turned off by the way they do things. He goes on to say, you've kept my word and have not denied my name. You know, there's always going to be pressure for us to compromise on truth because truth is offensive. You know, here's the thing. How many of you have ever been offended by something I've said in the pulpit? Honestly. Anybody brave enough to raise your hand? Because I'll be honest with you, there are things that I say from the pulpit that absolutely offend me. Because I know who I truly am. And it's hard. It's hard for us not to be offended by truth. Because our nature a lot of times takes us farther and farther away from what the Word of God says. And you know what? It's okay to be offended. It's okay if you want to get mad at me. I get mad at myself sometimes. I can handle it. Truth is offensive. And it doesn't mean that you don't love the people that you're talking to. It doesn't mean that you even think that you're a better person than the people that you're dealing with. Because we're not. It just means that we understand this is what God said we're supposed to do, and we're working each day to get to that particular point. And that's what the Church of Philadelphia was doing. Here's another thing I want you to notice. Jesus Christ loves the church. He loves his church. And His love is enough. Because if we as a church are not hated by some people, then we're probably not doing the job that we need to be doing. Because if we're really living the life we're supposed to live, we're going to offend people from time to time. And here's what we learn about that love. If you love Jesus, you're going to love His church too. Verse 8 says, I have set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. And here's what I want you to notice about what that door really is. The door that we're talking about here this morning is this. It's the door between our culture and the kingdom of God. Jesus says, I've opened a door for you. Nobody else is able to shut this door. And here's what I want you to notice about the doors that Jesus opens. When Jesus opens a door, He says, nobody else can shut it but me. When I open a door for you, when I give you an opportunity to step through this door, that door stays open until I shut the door. And here's what I believe. God opened a door for the church of Philadelphia to minister to the people in this country. And He says, I'm going to keep this door open as long as I want it open. And nobody's going to shut it regardless of the persecution that you're facing. Regardless of what other people think about you, I'm opening the door and it's going to stay open as long as I want it to open. And guys, He says the exact same thing to us as well. He says before you, Independence Missionary Baptist Church, I have opened the door for you to minister today. Now the question is, do we have the faith to step through the open door? Or do we stay on the other side because we're afraid to offend other people? And here's the next thing about the door. Jesus says, now when I close the door, nobody else is going to open it. Let me give you a history lesson on the church of Philadelphia this morning. Around the year 700 AD, there was a man that came around by the name of Muhammad. And Muhammad claimed to be a prophet that was talked to directly from God. And he came up with this new religion called Islam. And there is a big difference in Christianity and Islam. Because regardless of what we're told by mainstream media, the truth is this. Islam is not a peaceful religion. Because if you were to read what the tenets of this guy Muhammad says, it basically says that we are going to spread this doctrine of Islam through force and not through peace. So this new religion came into the land that we're talking about, modern day Turkey. And as this religion came in, they didn't come in trying to peacefully win people over. They came in with a vengeance and decided that they were going to spread this gospel of theirs, this religion of theirs, through force. And they were very successful. And a lot of these churches that we've been talking about started falling one by one. And they were completely eradicated. But here's the neat thing about the church of Philadelphia. Even in the midst of all this persecution, the church of Philadelphia actually lasted another 642 years in the midst of all this persecution. Why? Because God still had an open door for them to minister in that part of the world. You see, the difference in those two religions is that Christianity is a religion of invitation, while Islam was a religion of imposition. And the neat thing about the Church of Philadelphia is this. The Church of Philadelphia, in spite of all the persecution that they faced, they held strong even until the end. And here's the neat thing about the church. The neat thing about the Church of Philadelphia is they refused to compromise and deny Jesus until the point to where they physically died a martyr's death inside of the walls of their own church. You want to know why God was so pleased with the Church of Philadelphia? It wasn't that they probably had everything right. It wasn't that they didn't have problems. It's that they had a love for Him that was so great and so deep that they were all willing to give up their life for the one who gave up His life for them. And so in closing this morning, and really the challenge for us today is this. God says the same thing to us that He said to the church in Philadelphia. He said, I have set before you an open door which no one is able to shut. And guys, if you don't believe that that door is open for us today, you haven't been noticing things. There have been people that have come in and out of our doors that we've never seen. Because God is still working on the hearts of people in this area today. So the challenge is, the door is open. And it's been opened by Jesus Christ Himself. He says, nobody can shut this door until I decide to shut it. And as long as we are faithful to carry out His message, more people can be reached for. But the question this morning is,